Okay, hello everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. So, welcome to the first session of your 10-day crash course of AA. Now, today we'll be beginning with one of the areas of test of control that is a sure shot question in your examination. You will be getting a question confirmed in the examination for sub test of controls. It would be in section B as well as section A. So, if you see this particular area as substantive or test of controls as an important area, it will be one of the most important areas of the examinations. Three of the main important areas are test of control, substantive procedure, and audit planning. These three areas will hold approximately 60 to 70% of your examination marks. So if you get a good grip on these three areas, it will be very useful for you. It will be very helpful for you to pass the exam. Now, good grip on basically these particular areas is that if you are able to have a understanding of how to answer the question. Look, when you are answering a question on test of controls or substantive procedure or audit planning, learn to develop a pattern. Learn the strategy how to write an answer. If you are writing an answer and you don't know how to write it with a particular strategy, at the end of the day, you will collapse. If you're memorizing answers, what will happen is that you are going to basically be in a position where you will basically get out of proportion when the examiner gives you a different scenario as you have learned. Now, let's say we are solving this question. You memorize the points that we are writing in this question. Okay, if you start to memorize these points, the examiner will give you a scenario that is unique to you. And when a unique scenario comes in, people tend to get blank because they will be basically not having the clear understanding of how to develop the complete answer or develop a particular pointer for the scenario that is given to you. So first thing what you should do when you get to a question, we are just going to the question now. The first thing that you should do is basically read the question. Reading the question will give you the key idea that which area to focus on. Does this require you to read the passage or not? Okay, so first thing, read the question. Now in this question, particularly we are told that explain why the auditor needs to obtain understanding of components of internal control relevant to the preparation of financial statements. Now, why is it important for us to understand the components of internal control? Now, first of all, what are components of internal control? Components of internal control are basically five areas: control environment, risk assessment procedures, information systems that is implemented, activities of the control, and how does the management monitor the control. Now, why is it important for me? It is important for me basically because now if I don't understand these five things, the environment, the risk assessment procedures, the monitoring systems, the information system that is made implemented in the organization, and the communication is done through that, the activities of the control, are they being implemented and followed by the management or not, or the management is monitoring them in the longer run or not. If I don't know about these areas, if I don't get to understand these areas, what will happen is that I will basically place reliance on the internal controls higher than normal. Now, I commonly follow this pattern. What will happen if we do place higher reliance on the particular internal controls? If we place a higher reliance on internal controls, we will basically get an audit evidence that is weak. If we get an audit evidence that is weak, we are going to give an opinion that is wrong. That will in turn increase the overall audit risk. Now, look, when you're performing test of controls or your controls are being checked here, or you're trying to understand the particular financial statements procedures, how are the financial statements made? Your basic idea is to check what is the risk in the audit. Does the controls have a high risk or a low risk? If the controls have a higher risk, now if control risk is higher, it increases my audit risk. So what does the auditor do here? If the auditor gets known that my control risk is higher, that means my audit risk will be higher. What will the auditor do? Now the auditor should basically respond to it. How will he be a responsible person? How will he basically respond to this area? He will respond to this area with higher, increasing his professional skepticism, hiring senior staff, decreasing the materiality. By decreasing materiality, what do we mean? Basically, by decreasing materiality, we mean that we are going to lower the threshold on which we are going to check the transaction. So lower balances are going to be checked, so higher coverage will be done. So our sample size will increase. If he takes these steps, he will be able to reduce the detection risk and bring the audit risk to an acceptable level. Okay. Now, the main idea of the placing or reliance or basically checking the particular testing or basically checking the particular transactions is that if he is able to understand the system, he will be able to understand the transaction. Now we have a question that says, they can increase the procedures here. Yes, the substantive procedures are definitely going to be increased here. If the control risk is higher, the substantive procedures are definitely going to be increased here. Why is he increasing substantive procedures? So that he can cover a higher area. If he's covering a more substantive area, the sample size is higher, the audit evidence is higher, he can basically compensate for the audit evidences that he has obtained from internal systems. Plus with that also, he can do one more thing. What he can go for external sources of evidences. He will try to go for external areas. Why external areas? External areas will basically give me a more reliable audit evidence. Okay, so the question that says is, why explain? Now what do we have to do? We have to explain what is the need of the understanding of the system. So the need of the understanding of the system is basically that we have to understand if the particular internal control system, they are intended to basically mitigate the risk of material misstatement or frauds. So are they basically preventing and detecting errors or correcting them, or frauds are being detected there or not? What is the likelihood of the misstatements being prevented or detected? If the controls are weak in nature, that means our risk is increased. If our risk is increased, now our substantive procedure or substantive audit approach will be based on this assessment. So if this assessment is not correct, then we are not going to be able to design our operative effectiveness, design our audit plan effectively on this, on the particular entity. So this basic area is basically based on planning. When you're thinking of this area, think that you're planning an audit. If you're planning an audit, this is the first step that you're doing. If you're planning an audit, think of this area that you're doing this at the first stage of the audit. If you're doing this at the first stage of the audit, you need to understand what is the basic idea of the system, what is the basic base of the system. If the base is weak, that means you have to basically work higher. You have to perform more procedures. You have to achieve higher tasks, or you have to basically increase the time span of the audit, or the strategy of the audit will change. So in simple words, the strategy will be affected here. Okay. Now I'm by for 3 marks, if you write approximately 3 to 4 pointers, it will be more than enough for you. First of all, now what you would be doing, first of all, you need to identify the components of audit. Okay, first outline 5 points, the 5 components of audit. Then evaluate them. By evaluating them or explaining them, tell them if the systems are weak, and if you place reliance on them. If the system is strong, what will be the impact on it? Now this will basically give you a good idea. If you write this in a sentence, that if we are having a weak system, we need to develop a plan and develop a strategy through which we have to perform more substantive procedures. That will basically be done by reducing the materiality, increasing the sample size with us so that we can obtain more audit evidences. Other than that, we are going to place low reliance on the internal control systems and prefer directly evidences obtained by the auditor, or go for third-party confirmations as a major source, so that we have reliable audit evidence and we can reduce the overall audit risk. So if you're writing this much for the particular answer, it would be more than enough. A small paragraph outlining all the areas that will be affected by reliance on internal controls will be enough for you. Okay. So simple marks, 3 marks. For this, we don't need to basically read the passage as well. Now, next area. Next area says identify, explain 5 internal control deficiencies. So 5 deficiencies. Recommend a control to address each of the deficiencies. Describe test of controls, and basically what are we trying to do, achieve from the controls. Now, before we go into the passage, how do we write these kinds of answers? If I want to write an answer, let's go down here. If I want to write the answer, first of all, control deficiency. How do we write a control deficiency? A deficiency has 3 parts. Okay, number 1, copy the deficiency. What now? First of all, you will copy paste the passage that says this is the particular area of deficiency that will be highlighted in the scenario given to you. So identify deficiency. First stage is identification. Second stage is why is it a deficiency? Explain that. And third thing is impact. If you're writing these 3 things, you will sure shot get a mark for it. Okay, 1 mark is complete. If you're not writing the impact or why is it deficiency, you're not explaining that, that means basically you're writing a weak point. Okay, so for a good point to be there, you have to write these 3 things. First, identify deficiency, copy paste it. there. Then write why is it a deficiency, explain it, what is the deficiency here. The examiner doesn't know about it. Then write the impact of the deficiency so that the examiner knows that yes, if we are not mitigating this risk, if we are not controlling or basically implementing a control on this area, what can happen to us. Now look, everyone here must be understanding this position that if you are not told a consequence of an act, you are going to do it, right? If you're not studying, you will fail. Now the failing part is a thing that will strike your mind. So the examiner also says that the particular company should know what is the deficiency there, what is the problem that they should basically mitigate. Why is there a need of a mitigation here? Okay. Next thing, control recommendation. Now if you're writing a recommendation, what is the particular things that you have to identify? Now first you have identified the risk. Now identification of the risk and identifying why it is deficiency and impact you have revealed. Now what is the objective of the control? Now if you want to recommend something, I will first identify what will be the objective of my control. By objective of my control, I basically mean that which what is the risk I'm trying to mitigate. I've identified the risk in the first part. In the second part, I'm trying to mitigate the risk. So my objective of my control will be the mitigation of the risk I've identified. Now, recommendation should be basically fulfilling the objective of your control. If my control is to reduce the chances of theft, my control should be that I implement a camera that is going to face the area that the areas that has the valuables kept in it. If I want to reduce the chance of having unauthorized access, I need to apply the control that will complete my objective. So recommendation should be based on achieving the objective that you think will basically mitigate the risk. Okay. Then test of control will be the control that you have recommended. Test it whether it is operating effectively or not. So very easy marks if you learn the pattern, try this answer. The pattern is of key importance. If you are able to understand the pointers, understand the idea of how to develop the answer, if you write these answers, if you write these points, and you think accordingly, it will be easy for you to answer the particular question. I will implement these points here in the scenario that above. Okay, so let's go read the scenario. Now this is a question that is available in Kaplan and BPP both. So bronze company question. Now it says it is July 2005. You are an audit supervisor in Scarlett and Co. and you are in the process of reviewing the systems testing completed on the payroll cycle of bronze. So we are basically checking the payroll system to be very precise here. Now payroll cycle is one of the areas that is key focus here. So if you are remembering the cycle, payroll cycle is basically an area where the salaries are calculated and paid to the employees. Here the taxes are deducted. Every deduction, the gross pay and the net pay complete are calculated here and deductions are made here. So you have to make sure that these are having internal links as well as external links. The conflicts here, the mistakes here are going to impact the organization at a very high level. Why? Because they are not only involved with the employees, they are involved with the government because the taxes are going to the governments. They are going to be impacted by the unions because the payments of unions are going to be going there. And at the end of the day, the employee funds, the trust, the provident funds are also being deducted from here. So it will impact you at a very high level. The impact will be significant if you are having misstatements here. Okay, because the government will also launch a case against you as well as your stakeholders of the company. Now, moving forward. First of all, the first area, bronze operates several chemical processing factories across the country. It manufactures 24 hours a day. So 24 hours a day are worked here. Next, 7 days a week we are working. So standard shift of 8 hours is there. So 3 shifts a day. And approximately 80% being paid by a bank transfer and 20% in cash. Now, cash payment is always an issue for us. Now, but they haven't given us any kind of controls here, so we are not identifying any deficiency in control. But cash payment is a risky thing to have. Okay, so this should give you an indication that yes, there is a deficiency present. Now, the different payment methods are due to employee preferences, and bronze has no plans to change these. Okay, notion that the administration and sales team are paid monthly by bank transfer. So this is a payment system that they have told you. So no control deficiencies as yet highlighted here. Okay, now the second area, what does it say? Second area says factory staff are each issued sequential numbered clock cards, which details their employee number. So clock card is a good control that is applied. Okay, employees swipe their cards at the beginning, at the end of the 8-hour shift, and the process is not supervised. Now look, the examiner will tell you themselves that this is a deficiency. Okay, they have identified deficiency for you. Now, if what is the situation is that the clock card is there, a control is there, but it is not implemented accurately. The implementation is weak here. The design is there, but the implementation is weak. Why the implementation is weak? Now, think of it as your classroom. If you're going to a college or a school, now you are given a card to clock in and clock out. If you want to bunk a class, what will you do? You will give your card to a friend or to a student who goes to the class and tell them to clock in and clock out after the class is going on. So your attendance will also be marked in it, and your overall objective of bunking the class is also achieved. So employees can do that as well, and when they're getting paid for it, that's a bonus. So here the main problem, the first deficiency that I've identified is that they are having first of all, deficiency of not being supervised regarding the clock cards. So this is the deficiency. Now let's read the complete passage so that after that we'll write it in the pointer side. During the shift, employees are entitled to 30 minutes paid break, and employees do not need to clock out to access the dinner area. Now this is another deficiency that I'm identifying. So two deficiencies in the first paragraph. First of all, the deficiency is no supervision of clock-in systems. Now this is the deficiency that you have. Now you will copy paste this in your answer sheet. Now once you have copy pasted it, the next step is telling them why is it deficiency. This is a deficiency because if the employee is clocking in and going out without supervision, there is a risk that the employee might clock in and ask others to clock them out. Okay, they will basically do what? They will tell someone else to clock in on their behalf and clock out accordingly. Okay. Now, what will be the impact here? The impact here will be that the particular employee will be getting unjustified payments, and basically he will be getting the righteous payments of someone else. The overall payroll expense will increase here. If the overall payroll expense will increase here, that means the company is having a loss. Okay, so this is the deficiency that we are identifying here. Now, if I want to basically recommend a control here, okay, if I want to recommend a control, what will be my objective of the control? If I want to implement something, what will be my objective here? My objective will be that I want to ensure that employees are paid only for the hours they are working and are recorded on true and fair basis. Right? This will be my objective here, that if an employee is coming in, he should clock in at his time, he should clock out at his time only, and get paid for the work that he is doing only. So my control recommendation should be, first of all, an obvious thing, that keep a supervisor responsible for the clocking in and clocking out system for your employees. Okay. Then, in addition to, now this is one of the controls that can be there. Now, in addition to this, what we can do, we can basically see that one of the supervisors can have a random check of the employees. That we can see that how many employees are clocked in. He can go and physically check whether that employee is present there on sample basis. Okay, so a supervision can be done here. A supervision can be done here. So you can basically have a random check of the employees who are present according to the records. So record to floor checking can be done. So this is one of the controls that we can recommend. Now, if I want to test this controls, how can I test this control? Now, if I am having one person present at the door who is checking the clocks in and clock out of the systems of the employees, how can I check that? I will basically go and observe that whether a person is checking in and he is supervised by a superior or not, or he is checking out and a supervisor is there or not. In practical terms, it is easily possible by having a HR personnel or a guard or a person, anyone who is sitting next to the gate, that is in this office. You have to go and basically swipe your card and mark your attendance on written basis as well. Okay, so biometric can be done as well. One of the ideas is, yes, biometric systems can be used as well. Now the biometric system is there as well, but it is expensive in nature. Okay, so we are not given the scale of the organization, so we will recommend a control that a biometric system can be there, facial recognition can be there, retina scans can be there, all of them can be there, but a manual system should be there as well. Sometimes a biometric system can be bypassed as well. Now, face recognition systems and retinal systems are very expensive. You're not getting that point. these systems are very expensive in nature. When the auditor is checking a particular area, he is recommending something that is also affordable. If a control implementation is so expensive that it surpasses its benefit, it is not a good control recommendation, right? Let's say if I am telling you that you are weak in audit, and now you're saying that what should I do now? I tell you that you should go and basically take one-on-one classes. Now you're sitting on 49 on 3 marks. Now you have a 100 mark exam and you scored 49. And I tell you that you should go and take one-on-one classes. One-on-one classes cost you 200,000 rupees. Now the benefit of the passing of the exam is lower than the cost. So when benefit is low and the cost is higher, it is not a good recommendation to give. Okay, so don't give a recommendation that will basically cost a kidney or a heart to them. Okay, so biometric system can be also costly for a system. A costly system, a biometric system is a very costly system as well. And basically integrating them with all the particular employees' data. First of all, what you have to do is, now I'm giving the idea of logical thinking. If you want to have a biometric system involved in the organization, first of all, you have to register the biometric thumbnails of every employee. Okay, for that you need permission of the government as well, because you are retaining information that is based on confidential nature. You are retaining personal information of the employee, so you have to take the permission of the government as well. Okay, now biometric systems can be deceived as well. You have some systems, you have some gloves that you can reject the biometric systems as well. So you can give a suggestion of biometric system. It is a good measure, but it is expensive in nature. So try to go for the approach which is providing a normal cost and the benefit is higher than that. Okay, so we can introduce a system as well, or we can adopt to a system by adding a additional person to the supervisory post, or we can basically go for any other area. Let's say we can also have a CCTV camera installed where a person is sitting and monitoring the people who are entering in the facility and they are clocking in simultaneously. So there are multiple measures we can take. Biometric is also one of them, or facial recognition is one of them, but they're costly in nature. Okay. Now moving forward to the second one. Now they're saying that people are having dinners. Okay, people are having dinners or food systems. They are having 30-minute food breaks, and they are not clocking out. So are they working in the organization? No, they are not. They are having a food break. Are they getting paid for that time? Yes, they are getting paid for that time. So they should be basically clocking out before they are going to eat. They whether take a 30-minute break or an hour break. So they should be taking the clock out systems. So 30 minutes payment is basically paid to employees just to eat in the organization. So we're not paying them to eat, we're paying them to work, right? So this is one of the deficiencies that is there. Now this will result in what? Now why is it a deficiency? It is a deficiency because employees do not clock out. It would result in a payment of employees for sitting idle of their choice. It's idle not because of the organization. They're idle because of their own choice. They are having lunch and dinner and we're paying them for it. So if an employee is being paid for hourly basis, he should be basically paid for the hours he is working on. Okay, this will impact a high payroll, a high expense, and basically wastage of your payroll cost. Okay, so the variance, if we talk about the variance analysis here, the budgeted cost that we are seeing will be lower than the actual cost because the variance is coming because of the employee not vigilantly being working. They are utilizing the time of the office for which they are being paid in their own hours. Okay, now what control should be recommended here? The control recommendation will be same as the above, that employees should be basically entering in the cafeteria area. If you have a dinner area or dining room, to check into the dining room, they have to swipe their clock cards. They can develop a system there. If we are going for the particular lunch area or we are going for the dinner area, we should swipe our clock cards there. This will impact us how? This will basically result in a clocking out of the organization and entering into the lunch area. Or we can allocate a formal break for the employees to go and eat in the time only. And we can stop the timer. If you're eating, you're eating. If you're not eating, it's your choice. We're giving you a 30-minute or hour break where you can go and you are eating your overall time, overall lunch or dinner, whatever you want. If you're spending more than that time, that means we are not paying for it. If you want to get into the organization, you have to clock in back. So your recommendation could be basically now what we are trying to target again in here is that we are paying the employee for the hours that he is working, not for the hours he is enjoying as a lunch break or a dinner break. So our control should be recommended as a way that we are trying to mitigate the risk of overpayments, or basically giving them an opportunity to eat for a formal break, or implementing a system of clocking out, or making the machinery, or making sure a supervisor is there when employees are going into dining areas. Okay, so one of the controls can be there as well. Now for testing of this control, how can I do it? Now, if I have basically set an official break, if I have set an official break, what can I do is this will be communicated to the employees, and a formal break time schedule is given to them, that we have a lunch break of this particular area to this area. Now we can once go for the particular schedule of the day. We can go through the schedule and we can see whether the break time is there or not. Other than that, we can physically wait and see whether the 1 hour or 30-minute break time that is allocated to the employees, are the employees following that rule or they are not. So we can observe them as well, and we can inspect the schedule as well. Now, one of the main areas that people get confused in is the word inspection and observation. Okay, what is the difference between inspection and observation? Inspection is done for idle things. Okay, if my laptop is sitting on a table, I've kept my laptop on a table, I have kept a document on the table, I will inspect that. One of the process is happening, once something is happening, we are going to basically going to go for the particular observation side. Okay, now moving forward to our next area. Clock card data links into the payroll system, which automatically calculates gross and net pay along with any statutory deductions. So the payroll system is automated. The clock cards are going to be directly be there and update the data of the payroll, and payroll is automatically collected and the deductions are automatically made. Now, the payroll supervisor for each payment run checks on sample basis of some of these calculations to ensure the system is operating effectively. Now he's checking some of the areas. He's checking some of the areas of the particular employees' calculations. Okay. Now, Bronze has a human resource department which is responsible for setting up new permanent employees and leavers. Appointments of temporary staff are made by factory production supervisor. Okay, now one thing here is that temporary staff are basically appointed by factory supervisors. Isn't this a job of the HR department? Right? That means basically there is a problem of segregation of duties here. Right? Now, what will be the situation here? Now, first of all, if the factory supervisor is hiring an employee and he's giving the data to the HR department, there is an increased risk of unsuitable appointments. The payroll, the supervisor of the production department would hire someone who is a relative, or may just give the HR department data of an employee who is not actually there. Those are known as ghost employees. Okay, so both of situations can be there, where the employee might not be there and the factory supervisor might give fictitious data to the HR department, or the factory supervisor might hire someone who is a relative and not suitable for the opportunity to work in that department. Okay, so this is a deficiency here. So what should be the impact here? What would be the impact here? Impact will be that we are going to lose our resources. We're going to lose our salaries. We're going to lose our inefficiency. We're going to have an inefficiency. We're going to have a wastage of resources as well because of this unsuitable requirement. Or there might be a chance of fraud as well, because the supervisor of the department, of the factory department or production department, can take payrolls out of this department. Now, if I want to mitigate this risk, what will be my control? Now, what should be my objective here? My objective should be to ensure that all employees are properly recruited through a proper system and authorized by the HR department, and that setup should be from the HR department to the payroll department through the particular systems that we have developed. No shortcuts or override of control should be done here. What can I do here is I will basically ensure that I have segregation of duties. I will prohibit the production manager or factory supervisor to hire anyone. All recruitment should be done, whether temporary or permanent, handled by or done by the HR department in a formal procedure. Okay. Now, a formal procedure normally is that having an interview, having a contract signed, having the payroll, the payments that are there, the hourly rates agreed upon, etc., etc., and the file to be created in the HR department, transferred to the payroll department after the approval or sign of the HR official. Okay, so this is the control I can recommend. Now, how will I test this control? I can basically go and check for the documentation of the approval of the employee. I can go for the attendance register, identify the temporary employees, check whether they have signed a contract or not. Is the payroll department having the authorized documentation of setting up the employee or not? So I can go for the personal approved files of the particular employee by the HR department to check whether the particular system is followed or not. Okay, so this is a layout of how we can identify this problem. Now, occasionally, overtime is required of factory staff, usually to fill gaps or caused by staff holidays. Overtime reports, which detail the amount of overtime worked, are sent out quarterly by the payroll department to production supervisor for the review. Now, you see that we are having a payroll system where we are having overtime paid. Okay, we are paying overtimes. Now, we are paying the overtime on a monthly base or a weekly base, right? The examiner has initially told us that the particular employees are paid at the end of each month in cash or credit, but we are checking the payroll overtime payments at the end of the quarter. So after 3 months, we are checking the payments at whether we have made the appropriate payments or not, and we're paying them before time, before they authorize. So payments are made before authorization. So this is a big risk. Now, if for some time, let's say in January, I paid an employee. In January, I paid an employee, and I'm checking the payment in March, and the employee left in February. That means basically I paid him overtime, and if he has not basically earned that amount, I'm paying him extra. This is a big risk that the particular supervisor or the HR department or the payroll department can basically take advantage of. So when you're giving them an opportunity, they will definitely take advantage of it, right? So make sure that you're not giving an opportunity to the people to get a fraudulent opportunity or fraudulent activity in your organization. Okay, so now this is the risk that we are having. First of all, that payments are made before authorization. So there is a chance that the payments might be fictitious or payments might have errors in them that could result in an inaccurate payment of overtime to the employees. Now, it could be overpayment or underpayment as well, both of them. If it is an overpayment, that means basically we are losing our finances. If it is an underpayment, the employee might question our goodwill or question a reputation of the organization. He will spread a word that the organization is not paying accurate amounts to the employees, right? So our control objective will here be that we are paying the overtimes in a valid and accurate authorized manner. The payments are valid, they're accurate, and are authorized by the departments. So for the overtimes, the control recommendation should be that our overtime should be approved and authorized by the official before the payments are made, whether be it weekly, whether be it monthly. Okay, and a written authorization should be provided to the payroll department, after which the payment can be processed to the payroll department, etc., etc. Okay, now how do I test this particular system? Now I have told you that we need a written approval or written authorization. So if there is a written authorization needed, that means basically now what I have to do is I have to basically make sure that I am checking that document. If there is a signature on the particular payroll department getting the overtime payments authorized, I will check the signature. I will inspect the evidence and make sure that the payments are made are only authorized. Okay. Now moving on to the next paragraph. Now you see that we have read approximately 2 to 3 paragraphs. We have gotten 30, almost 3 to 4 points. So a 5 marker question is very easy to extract. Make sure I'm telling you this, that in the examiner's perspective, in the examiner's scenario, there are approximately 7 to 8 pointers here. Okay? There are 7 to 8 pointers always there. Okay. So here what will happen is that you are going to only take out 5 pointers. In terms of practice, now when you're writing an answer for practice nowadays before the exam, you should try to identify as many points as you can, whether it be it 10, 8, 10, whatever points you find, write them out. And then after you have written them all, match them with examiner's answer and identify the best pointers that you can have written. Okay, so this will give you a opportunity, a variety to write in the examinations. If you are focusing on 5 points only right now, you will be limited to 5 points in the examination. If you are not able to identify 5 points, you don't have a practice of variety, so it would be difficult for you. Okay, now moving forward, to encourage staff to attend work on time for all shift, bronze pay a discretionary bonus every 6 months to factory staff. The production supervisor determines the amount to be paid This is communicated in writing by the production supervisor to the payroll department, and the bonus is input by a clerk into the system. Now, this is a big problem here. First of all, the production supervisor has no authority to decide how much to pay as a bonus. He is not in a position to determine whether the bonus should be paid or not. The board of directors should be doing that. The supervisor of the particular production department should give a suggestion to them, and they are the people to decide whether this particular amount is to be paid or not, right? So this is a big deficiency. What will happen here is, now this particular area will result in what the supervisor might favor some of the employees who are his friends, create a risk of bias or favoritism, right? Or pay his relatives higher, or pay a ghost employee a bonus that he should not deserve, basically, right? In this situation, the biggest problem is that there might be a risk of bias or favoritism. The impact will be that the company will lose goodwill. The company's employees are not going to be satisfied. There will be a higher employee turnover here. Now, in terms of recommendation, what will be my control objective here? My objective of control will be that I should basically ensure that the bonus are paid and authorized on fair grounds by higher authorities. So my recommendation should be that the senior officials of the direct or the post of directors or the board of directors should formally determine and approve a particular bonus and communicate directly to the payroll department. The production supervisor is in no authority to determine the employee bonus or get it authorized or paid it directly by the payroll department. So a formal plan should be there. Here I am just writing it down as well. Formal approval and communication should be there. Okay. So I believe that everyone is clear on this area. Now, to test this control, what can I do is, for testing this control, I will basically see that whether the directive or the document that is authorized or signatured by the board of directors or the senior officials are present with the payroll department before they have authorized a bonus or not. Okay. Next thing, one more point I can see here is that the particular production supervisor is giving the bonus, and bonus is input by a clerk into the system. Now you see that the payroll clerk, a junior employee, is inputting something as important as a payroll bonus. Okay. Uh, if the particular clerk is inputting these data, if the clerk is inputting this data, he might conduct errors, and the input of data is not being checked by a senior official as well. Now, let's say if you are inputting data by a clerk, okay, it's not an issue. The clerk has a duty to input the data. But if he is inputting the data, someone should basically check whether the data input is correct or not. We are not doing that as well. So that is also a deficiency that we can see here. Now, if this is the deficiency, what can be the impact here? The impact can be that we might create a risk of fraud and error, right? So an independent review should be there when the input is done by the clerk of the organization. Now, what is our objective? Our objective is that the bonus amounts are accurately and completely inputted into the systems. Okay. After that, we can also say that the bonus. Now, the recommendation is the bonus should be input by independent parties, or if it is inputted by a clerk, the independent parties should basically cross-check the particular data input by the payroll team and authorize it before the payroll pays out the bonuses to the other departments or to the employees. Okay. Now, how can I do it? How can I do this process that an independent party is reviewing the particular document? First of all, he will sign it. So inspect the signature or inspect a sample of the bonus paid and check whether the signature or authorization is there or not. Second thing, I can observe the process of the particular bonus being reviewed by an independent party. Okay. So one of the points can be that as well. Now, moving forward, for employees paid by a bank transfer, the payroll manager reviews a list of payments and agrees the payroll records prior to authorizing the bank payments. Okay. Now, first of all, what is he doing? What is he doing? The employee paid by a bank transfer. Now, the payroll manager is reviewing the payments and agreeing to payroll records prior to authorizing the payments. First of all, he is the one creating the payments. Is he not? Yes, he is. Now, he is the one creating it. He is the one basically reviewing it, and he is the one authorizing the payments. So all your duties are done by one person. So where is segregation of duties here? There is a lack of segregation. If I see a lack of segregation here, that means basically I am not following the rules and regulations that are given by the organization. So one employee should not be basically there to input the data, to check the data and authorize the payment. There should be 2 to 3 employees doing this particular task. So the payroll manager can amend the payroll records. So he should not be the person who should be authorizing the particular transactions. So there should be a separate person who is basically independently checking the transactions or authorizing the transaction after reviewing them. Or if the payroll department is making the transactions up, or they're entering the transactions or amending the payroll, they should not be the people who should be reviewing it and authorizing them. Now, our control objective here will be that we should prevent and detect fraudulent or unauthorized payroll payments, right? So, our control should be, the recommendation should be that we should basically have 2 separate people or 3 separate people who are basically inputting, checking, and authorizing the payments through the bank transfers so that there is a lower chance of fraudulent activities. Or most probably, the finance director should be the person who is basically performing the cross checking and authorizing the payments from their onwards. Now, if I want to inspect this particular area, if I want to check this particular area, inspect the bank transfer list and see whether the approval is there from the individual party who is assigned the authority to approve, cross check, and pay the payments. Okay. Now, moving forward to the last bit of our passage. For employees paid in cash, the pay packets are prepared in the payroll department and the clerk distributes them to employee as she knows most of these individuals does not require proof of identity. Now, first of all, we are basically paying them wages in cash and we do not require a proof of identity. That is a very vague thing to do, right? So here what we are seeing is the payroll, the clerk is, first of all, the clerk is distributing the particular payments to the employee and they're not checking the identity of the people, so there is a chance that someone else might take a particular person's payments instead of the actual person getting the back, right? There are people who look identical, who seem to be identical, can brothers, can be cousins, etc., etc., and they're taking the payroll or the salary of someone else. This is a big risk. So there is a very big chaos if one person is paid the salary of another later on in the environment of the organization. So here, if we are paying them in cash, we should basically ensure that the payment is made to the correct person. This is the objective that I have to basically make sure. Now, how can I do that? First of all, I will basically try to generate a picture of the employee on the clock card that I have. I can do one thing. I can make sure that the clock card has a picture of the employee that is working in the organization for identification purposes. Second thing, I can say them that sign their particular payments when they received. Sign on the paper or basically enter the clock card when they are getting the payments. If they're entering the clock card and signing it, we can cross verify it when the sign was done from the original hiring point. Okay. So this will basically ensure that we have an end-to-end communication system. Let's say if you get a parcel at your home, what does a delivery guy do? Whether they give you an OTP that you have to give them, or they tell you to sign a document so that they know who received the payment. So if someone else is taking the payment, we can mitigate the risk by this particular area. Now, how can I do this test of controls? I can observe the wages being distributed and check whether the signature process or the clock card process is being followed or not. Okay. So I have given you almost 7 to 8 points for this particular area. So I believe that this question would be clear to you guys regarding all the components of how to identify the risk, what can be the idea of recommendation of controls, how can you test them. And now I'll be giving you the opportunity to ask the questions. I'll be referring to the chat box now. Okay, just pausing the recording and we'll move on. Now, when you're writing control deficiencies, how the examiner likes it. Now, look, when you are writing an answer, think of the examiner as a human. He is a human. He will basically emphasize on the presentation of the answer. Okay. Now, if you're giving them a good presentation, he will basically reflect it on the checking procedures. If you have clearly written the points, you have structured them, etc., etc., it will be a basic positive point for your marking of the examination. So when you're writing an answer, first focus should be that you give a clear heading, you number the particular control, you are numbering the particular points, the heading should be in bold, the paragraph should be separately identified. Okay, separately identifying the particular pointers. That means basically if you're writing the identification of the process, identification of the deficiency, identification should be done in separate terms. It should be separately identified. It should be separately faced there, separately written there. Second paragraph should be a deficiency that you have identified, and third paragraph should be the impact there. So it will help you in basically getting good marks. Okay, now let's just go through the particular drafting point here. Now, first of all, when you are drafting the point, the first point that you identified was that no supervision was there. No supervision was there on the clocking systems. Okay, no supervision was there in the clocking systems. So if no supervision was there, this is a deficiency, right? If this is a deficiency, then how can we mitigate this deficiency? Now, three columns are going to be there, but what you have to make sure is that the three columns that are there should be equally given importance, because each of them have one mark. Okay, so let's go with number one. The first is clock in slash clock out system is not monitored. This is the heading that I can give. Okay, so a small phrase or one or two points, I have bolded it out. Now, second step is identification of problem. So the pointer, the paragraph, the area that emphasizes or gives you the area that gives you the particular point where the particular deficiency is written, copy pasted. So employees work in 3 shifts, 7 days a week. They have a clock in and out system developed, but the system is not supervised. So identification part is done here. This is just the free mark that you have to copy paste. Okay. Once you have identified that, change the line. Now here you will identify why it is a problem. This could result in a employee being swiping the card of another employee and not being present in the organization. Employee swiping the card of another employee, or the employee swiping a card in and not being present in the organization. Okay. Now, what will be the impact here? This will result in a higher payroll cost for bronze company. This is the impact. So very simple one mark. Now the second point is the recommendation. Now the control objective that I was telling you, that we should understand the control objective here. The control objective is basically a planning thing that you should do. It is not a thing that you have to write. The control objective should be in your mind. And what is the objective I have to basically try to achieve? In this situation, my objective will be that I'm mitigating the risk is that I'm paying the payroll people extra. I should not be paying extra. So here my recommendation should be that the simple and first and foremost thing, the clock in and out system should be monitored or supervised by an official of the organization, preferably from the HR department, so that they know which person was there or not, or what is the track record of the particular person. Okay, or this is one of the controls. Okay, and the second can be that the HR department can randomly check for employee presence through records to floor method, basically taking a sample employee and checking whether they are present in the organization or not. Okay, this is a recommendation that we can keep. Okay, the next thing is your test of control. Now, test of control. Now, in both the scenarios, I can basically do what I can observe, right? I can observe it. I can observe the particular supervisor being inspecting or checking the particular room or particular entry systems. If they have implemented a CCTV camera, are they basically using the CCTV camera and monitoring them, the employees being checking in or out, etc., etc. Right? So I can do that. So whatever control you have recommended, just test whether it is operating effectively or not. So observe the clocking system and ensure the responsible supervisor is there in place to overwatch the clocking in and out process and inquire the supervisor whether they perform the surprise random check systems and at what duration do they have these checks. So this will definitely give you short 3 marks for the particular answer. Okay, so I believe that people are having clarity on how to draft up these points. Now, the complete drafted answer is available on the Google Drive that I have given you on the WhatsApp group. Okay, the drive is available. We can have CCTV camera monitoring as well, but at the end of the day, if you are having a CCTV camera monitoring system, we have to keep a person who is supervising the CCTV system. He's watching the recordings of people getting in and out. If you're not keeping a person there who is checking the ins and out, that means basically the systems are ineffective in nature. So having a system and a complete system is important. If you're recommending something, recommend something that is complete in nature. Okay. So I believe that everyone is clear on this question. And if you have any questions, let me know. Okay. Now let's move on to our second question for the day. That is not on company. That is available on your Kaplan Kit and VP as well. Now let's read the question and read the requirements first. Then we'll move forward with the particular areas. The first area. Auditors are required under 260, either 265 communicating deficiencies in internal controls to TCWG to communicate in writing to those charged in governance any significant deficiencies in internal controls. Describe 4 matters that the auditor may consider in determining whether a deficiency is significant in nature or not. Now, first of all, let's discuss ISA 265. ISA 265 is basically a IS that is given to us, ISA that is given to us, basically emphasizing on in checking whether the control that you are testing is having a deficiency, and if it is having a deficiency, is it a significant deficiency or a deficiency that we, if we just communicate to the management, it would suffice the objective that we are trying to achieve. Okay, so the auditor must communicate any deficiencies that are identified and are enough to warrant the attention of TCWG. Significant deficiencies are those that could impact the organization materially. Okay, now deficiency can be from multiple things. First of all, a control is not at all present. That is a deficiency. Second deficiency can be there when a control is there, but its design, implementation, or operational effectiveness is failing to prevent the material misstatement or error we have timely try to adjust. Now, what are the factors that we should determine before we say whether this is a significant deficiency or whether it is a small deficiency? First of all, what we have to see is that how likely is the particular error going to happen. The likelihood that deficiency could lead to a material misstatement. Let's say I'm saying that my organization that I am working in has inventory moving system where the person who is taking the inventory out of the organization doesn't has to keep any record of it or doesn't have to ask anyone about it. So this is a deficiency that could create a material misstatement, chance of fraud, chance of misappropriation of assets, and in a very likely manner. And it is very likely that this will happen, right? So the likelihood is one of the things that we have to discuss. We have to see. Then the susceptibility of fraud or loss of assets. Is it a thing that is basically highly likely that this will happen or not? Are this kind of fraud is acceptable to us or not? Is it a small loss or a big loss for the organization? Then one of the main area is that complexity or subjectivity. Complexity. Now, if a particular system is very difficult to understand, if it is a system that is very complex in nature, does it have an impact that the particular systems, a particular entity might not follow it effectively? Or we might not be able to judge the particular system effectively, and the particular system might have a risk that could materially impact the particular company? Yes, it can be. Then if there are high volume of transactions, right? If there are high volume transactions, there's a high chance there can be deficiency or it can impact the organization materially. Then importance of the area of control, importance of area where control is implemented, right? This is one of the things that you have to consider. Then frequency of errors happening in that particular area or interactions of deficiencies. Now, if one of the controls has a deficiency, it could impact the results of another department as well. So if it is impacting other department as well, that means the deficiency can transform forward or continue forward to other departments. So this is having a multiplier effect, right? If it is having a multiplier effect, that means basically now you are in a problem or a situation where your deficiencies will multiply. So these 3 to 4 pointers, if you're writing them, this could result in a good mark of a 5 mark or 4 marker answer for you. So this question is 4 marks for you, so 4 points are more than enough. If you want to write some more pointers, it can be basically causes of frequent exceptions. If there are frequent exceptions, if there are frequent deficiencies, frequent errors, are they because of this particular control? If the transactions that are having are exposed to material amounts, that means this is a significant matter. Now, the main idea of ISA 265 is to determine what is most important, what is less important, what is highly important and can impact the financial statements materially or material plus pervasively, is to be communicated to the board of directors at the first priority. Okay, so the decision here is, if you are commonly having common understanding of deficiencies, what is a deficiency, it will be easy for you to determine whether it is significant or not. So see what will be the impact there. Is it likely? It is high. If it will give me a very big impact, then go for the board of directors. If the impact is low, if the complexity is low, transactions are low in nature, that means basically this area is weak, but not so weak that we should go to the board of directors, because the deficiency will result in a lower problem, a lower what we can say lower impact of the organization. So the end result comes on the impact there. So just describe 4 or 5 of these and you will get easily 4 marks. Now this is a knowledge based question. We don't have to refer to the passage for this, so it saves us a lot of time. So read the question first at all times. Okay. Now second point B. Now here we are saying is said to be basically seeing 3 direct controls which auditor may seek to place reliance on. So 3 controls that are direct controls, and why do we have to seek reliance on them? How can we seek reliance on them? Is by testing them. If the test comes out to be positive, it comes out to be in a, what we can say, in a reliable audit evidence procedure. If it comes out to be giving us an audit evidence that is reliable in nature, we will place a reliance on them. So if a direct control is there, we have to test it. Okay. So this is a very easy question, very easy part. Let's just go through it first. Now let's read the passage together. Now this is a pretty long passage, so let's just quickly go through it. Now we are reviewing the extracts from internal control documentation in interim audit. The company year end is 30 September 2005. The company provides training services for individuals looking for good qualified engineers. Now, employees that send their employees for training on a weekly basis, Snowdown run classes in its 45 training centers across the country. Now there are 45 training centers. That means this is a vast operation. If higher transaction, now this is a vast business. Higher transaction means that there is a chance of higher errors. If there are multiple locations, increases the complexity of the audit. Now let's say I am saying that I have inventory kept. If I have inventory kept in 10 different locations, would it be difficult for you to check the inventory's quantity, quality, and verify its value? Yes, it will be difficult for you. So when complexity increases, there is a higher risk of error or fraud there. Okay. Now moving forward, the company has small internal audit department which has experienced significant staff shortage. So there's a high shortage of staff here. If there's a high shortage of staff, that means basically there are chances of material misstatements being there, and we are not able to investigate them or identify them. And is currently under-resourced. This has resulted in reduction in their program of work in the air in many areas. Okay. Now, first of all, the efficiency, the first area of problem is identified in front of you. Now, if I want to go for a direct control, if I'm telling you a direct control, now what is the main objective here? What is the main idea here? That if you are seeing a control, if it is a direct control, now same procedure, direct control, identify the control, okay, then explain the control, that this is the control that is being there, and why are you paying reliance on that. And the third part will be test of control. So the control that you are seeing, how will you test it to basically identify that yes, we are seeing this as a reliable document or reliable procedure. So this is the step that we are going to take. I'm going to draft one or two of them, so we'll get an idea of it also. Now, non-current assets. Non-current assets, first of all, telling us Snowdown company trains are either owned by company or are held under long-term lease. The company also had a head office and central warehouse for storage of training material. Each training center is set up as a separate department and is given an annual asset expenditure. So they are given an annual asset expenditure separately for each of the departments. Okay. But some departments have already significantly exceeded their annual budgets. First of all, an asset, a fixed expenditure is given, a fixed budget is given to them. Is budget a good control? Yes, it is a good control. It is a good control. How? It is a good control because if you are giving a budget, people know how much to spend, and we can basically evaluate them if they are deviating from them. We can place reliance on this control, as this will result in what? This will result in a scrutinization process, evidence for us that this department is not working adequately or working adequately, but not in this particular area. Okay. Now, when new equipment is acquired, the finance department classifies the expenditure between asset and expenses, noting classification of purchase order. The classification is made with the reference to guidelines established by the finance director, who sample checks the expenditure allocation has been correctly applied. So this is a very good control. Why is it a good control? In many scenarios, in many places, you might see that a particular company has a deficiency. How or why is it deficiency, or what is the main problem that people are not able to classify between capital expenditure and revenue expenditure? And if they're classifying between one of them, they are not reviewed. So here we are classifying them adequately according to guidelines set by the finance director, and we're reviewing them as well. So this is a very good control that we can see. Now, how should we go about it? First of all, asset classification check. This is the heading that we can give it. Now, explain the particular control or purpose of the control. Now, if we are looking at this particular area, asset expenditure purchase orders are the first document that we get. And these are the documents that we are going to cross-verify with the delivery and with the particular payment system as well. This is going to be classified or carried forward till the end to the finance department. Now, they're classifying the particular capital expenditure or revenue expenditure accordingly on the purchase order. Okay, using the guidelines of the particular director, and director is also checking them. This reduces now If you are saying that I want to place reliance on something, I want to rely on something, you have to tell the advantage of this particular control. What risk does it mitigate, right? Now, in this particular area, this reduces the risk of misclassification of the expenditure or the cash spent on a capital asset or a revenue expenditure. Now, in this situation, what is happening is you are basically reducing the risk of misclassifying your transaction that would lead to misstated profits or asset or depreciation or any kind of other components or impairment as well. How now? Let's say if I am purchasing an asset, let's say I purchase an asset for 100 rupees. Now there's an expense of training. Now training I have spent 20 rupees and I classified this as capital. Now the cost of or the asset's value is 120. Now I will depreciate, if I'm depreciating it at 6 years, that means basically I will depreciate 20 per year. If it is basically not a capital expenditure, I should have expensed it out. If I'm expensing it out, that means my profit will be lowered down. Okay. Now, if I am not capitalizing them, it will reduce my depreciation as well. It will reduce the value of the asset slower than normal. It will not have an impairment impact. So the complete financial statement will have multiple impacts if I'm using this control. So this control will help me immensely in reducing the risk of misrepresentation of the asset and the profits of the organization. Okay, so now how will you test this control? Now this testing of control will be done by, if they're saying that they are classifying an asset and they're saying whether the expense is on capital expenditure or revenue expenditure. What can I do is I will select a sample of asset purchased. And they're saying that they have written the particular classification on the purchase order. So I will take the purchase order and I will see whether the classification is recorded there or not. And if it is recorded, the first step is clear. First step is tick marked here. Then it is reviewed by the finance director. If he's reviewing it, he will have a signature or a stamp placed on it. So I will basically inspect the purchase order for any signature or stamp provided by the finance director. So this way I can test the control available here. Okay, so here we have to give just 3 of them. If you're giving even 4 of them, it will be more than sufficing the objective of our control. Okay, now moving forward to the second paragraph. Part of the work which Snowdown Internal Audit Department is required to carry out is a comparison of assets for the non-current asset register and those physically present. Okay, so they're comparing the asset on physical and the books. In each of the centers, this year program of visits which was planned, which has been planned and carried out on the same basis of previous year, means by the year end, Internal Audit Department only have visited 4 largest centers of and 5 of the other centers randomly selected. Now, what they're telling us is that they check the assets on documents to physical assets. Now, if they're checking them through both of the methods, this year they are checking only 4 of the big organizations and 5 of the smaller ones. So they're only checking 9 out of 34 of the particular facilities that they have. That means basically they are not checking a substantial portion of the particular areas that where their assets are implemented. This is a deficiency, so we'll leave it for now. We'll just go through the first area of direct controls. Okay. Now, Snowdown Company has a human resource department responsible for setting up all new joiners. Pre-printed joiner forms which require all necessary data are completed by HR department. So pre-printed joiner sheets are there and completed by HR department for new employee. Once verified, a copy is sent to payroll department. So the employee number and system requires new joiner employee to number of. So basically they are having a staff number assigned by the new systems. So HR is basically completing the paperwork and transferring to the payroll department. Then the payroll department is adding them into a system by the unique code that is given to them by the HR system. So there is a segregation of duties here. Okay, so I can clearly see a segregation of duties here. If there is a segregation of duties between HR and payroll department, what will be the benefit here? Now, if this control is relied upon, if this system is a good control, now how should I say that? How should I tell the examiner that this is a good control? I will tell the advantages of it. How am I going to tell the advantages here? My advantages are going to be that, first of all, if I am using this particular control, this control will help me in increasing segregation duties, reducing the risk of fictitious employees being there. The employees are created by one department and listed into a system by another department. That means basically it is cross-checked. So chances of fraud or error can be reduced here. The chances of error and fraud can be reduced here. We can have a lower chance of fictitious entries being there, fictitious employees can be there, and the chances of payroll being overseated are reduced here. Okay, so this is one of the areas that we can place reliance on. Now, if I want to check this, basically what will I do is basically I will review one of the department job descriptions. If HR department, payroll department have different jobs, their descriptions are going to be separate. If their job description is separate, that means basically there are different roles that they have to perform. That means segregation of duty is inherently there. Other than that, I can basically do what I can go and discuss with the payroll staff or HR staff and ask them what is the process of enrolling a employee into our organization. So if I am getting the chance of enrolling it into the systems, if I'm getting a chance to understand the system, I will be basically placing the lines on that. So it is a better system for me. Now moving forward, another thing that I can do is I can basically go and check for the documentation transferred to the payroll department by the HR department. Now, if the HR department is transferring the data to payroll department, that means basically they are having a document officially provided to the payroll department. So this document will verify that the employee was transferred through an official process, not a fictitious process. Now, if there is until unless there is a collusion, there is no chance there can be a misstatement here or an error or fraud here. Okay, because there are two people cross-verifying things through documentations. Now, moving forward, all members of payroll department can amend the employees. Now, this is also a deficiency I can see clearly, visibly. So I'm not going to read it right now. We're going to move it in the future. Now, one thing that I see here is pre-printed new joiner forms. If there are pre-printed new joiner forms in the previous paragraph here, I am just pointing it out. Is it good for my organization or not? It is good for my organization. Why is it good for my organization? Because if I have a pre-printed system or pre-printed form, first of all, it will have a unique code. If it is unique, that means basically there is no chance of doubling an employee. Second, if it is a pre-printed form, there is less chances of missing out important details of the employees. Third thing, the payroll department cannot process the new employer if the system is incomplete, if the particular sequence is out of order, or the employee is coming out without the form. So the payroll department would not be able to process the employee. So this reduces the risk of having fictitious employees. So how can I verify this control, whether it is implemented accurately, effectively, or is being used or in our operations on daily basis or not? I will select a sample of the new employee who is joined recently by the HR department. I will see whether their pre-printed forms are transferred to the to a payroll department, and if the payroll department receives one of the employees, is there a unique code provided or printed on the sheet or not? Then I will basically inspect the records of payroll department and see whether a form is. I will track the documentations, the physical documentations, and the computerized documentation simultaneously. I will go to the computer, I will check the computers, take a sample of employee, and go for the particular physical documents there. I can do one more thing here is that I can try to go for an employee code that I know is not in the system. I can go and input the payroll employee number that is I know is not in the system and see whether it rejects it or not. If it is rejecting it that this employee does not exist, that means basically my payroll system is working efficiently and effectively. Otherwise, it will basically pass through and my controls are ineffective in nature. So this will give me a good test of controls and a good basis to rely on the control present in the organization. Now moving on, now I believe that the rest of the two paragraphs are going to be deficiencies, so let's skip them. Now there will be something in the bank system that we have. After passing a credit card check, new customer are set up in the individual customer master file and credit limit is set by the sales director. The credit card limit remains unchanged in system unless a review is requested by the customer. Okay. Now this has some deficiencies in it that I have identified, but we'll discuss it later on. First part is our focus on the direct controls. Now, second paragraph also seems to be a deficiency. Third paragraph, every month the cashier reconciles the bank statement to bank ledger accounts. The reconciliation are reviewed by finance controller who also investigates all reconciling items and evidences review by signature of the control. Now, if he is having a monthly reconciliation, that is a good thing. If a monthly reconciliation is done, it is a good thing. First of all, it is emphasizing or it is giving us a hint that we are on the right path. Second area is that we are having a signature of the finance director. The finance director is not just going through the reconciliation, he is cross-verifying the evidences present as well. So this will give you an impact. This will give you an indication that yes, the finance director is setting a tone from the top where he is very particular about the controls being implemented and whether these particular reconciliations are accurate or not. So this will give you a sense of what we can say comfort that the control is adequate in nature and it will mitigate the risk that we have. Now, how to test this control? This testing will be done by inspecting the bank reconciliation. I will inspect the bank reconciliation, that whether it is made monthly or not. Then I will review a sample and see whether the financial controller has reviewed it by signature or not. And if there is a signature present as it is written in the passage, I will check that so that I can place reliance that yes, the finance controller has reviewed the complete documentations and has placed reliance on the particular documentation that yes, the reconciliation is correct in nature. So these 3 pointers are more than 3 to 4 pointers are more than enough. The answer is of 3 marks. So 3 pointers are more than enough for each of the areas. So I have given you 4. You can graph them. It will be very easy for you to complete this area. Okay. Now, now moving to the second part of the question. What does it say? The second part of the question says that you have to identify 5 deficiencies in Snowdown internal control systems and provide a control recommendation for each other deficiency addressed. So we have done this in the previous question as well. This is a 10 marker. So very easy marks, very free marks if you just read the passage once. If you read it once, you will be able to identify many deficiencies here. Now let's read them, identify them. I'm using a different color here so that you can segregate between the particular deficiency identified. Now, in the first paragraph, we have been given one of the deficiencies clearly. The company has an internal audit department which has experienced significant staff shortage and currently under-resourced. If they are currently under-resourced, that means they have basically not been able to conduct the work that they are able to do prior to the accounting area. So they have reduced their work program this year as well. So this is a deficiency. Why? This is a deficiency because this will result in a impact on the organization's risk level. This, if the work of the internal audit department is reduced, that means basically their coverage area is reduced. If their coverage is reduced, that means basically the risk of having a misstatement not being identified by them or a risk of fraud being there in the particular financial statement is higher. If the risk is higher, that means basically the company might have misstatements that we are not able to identify and could result in a material impact on the financial statements. So this is the first deficiency that we can clearly see. Now, in order to basically recommend a particular control here, what can I do? First of all, get to the what is the objective of the control. If I'm giving a control recommendation, what objective am I trying to achieve here? Now, my objective will be that I will try to ensure that the internal control systems are monitoring and identifying all the weaknesses in a timely manner. Yes, my internal control systems are identifying the weaknesses that are there in the system in a timely manner and are mitigating them in a timely manner as well. So this is my first objective here, my first idea here, my first approach here. In order to do that, what can I do is I can hire temporary staff. Yes, I can hire temporary staff, outsource internal audit department if you're not able to complete the work that is done in internal audit department. In short term, we can have some qualified departments, other department members to come in and second us in this department, can help up in overtime periods, etc., etc. Now, if they are not reviewing the controls at all times, they will not be able to place reliance on them. They will not be able to mitigate the frauds, and this will result in a material or pervasive impact on the financial statements. Now, recommendations include hire temporary staff, outsource the department, or tell the internal staff of other departments to help us in this department. But make sure when you're writing control, write it complete. Now, one deficiency, one problem here is self-review thread that I've given you. I told you that another department members can come in and check the controls or review the controls. So self-review threat is if they have developed a control or they're working in a control, they will try to hide the deficiencies in the system that they have developed or they're working on. So one person who has developed a control from other departments should not review their work here. You have to write this in the answer. In the recommendation, if you are saying another department person can come in and check or assist in the internal audit department, you have to mention that they should not be placed in a place where they have conducted their own work prior to assisting in this department. Otherwise, you will lose this mark. You will lose this mark because the examiner will see that you have not assessed the area You have not analyzed the area that you might have a deficiency of ethical threat, and this ethical threat might lead to a material misstatement. Okay. Now moving forward to non-current assets. Now non-current assets is the first area. Now non-company centers are either owned by the company or held under long-term lease. The company also has a head office, central warehouse, storage, and training lease. Each training center is set up in separate department and given an annual asset expenditure budget. But some departments have already significantly exceeded their annual budget. So deficiency here, budget present, that means budget not followed. A control is present, the design is there, but implementation is weak. So that means if the implementation is weak in nature, that means basically we are not in a mood to, or we are not in the right mindset to control ourselves. If you're not having a particular control on the budgets, what is the need of a budget being there? So departments have significantly exceeded their annual budget. That means our budgetary controls are weak. This will impact an over expenditure or over expenses in our organization, resulting in our financial liquidity issues or financial troubles on the organization. Now, what should be the recommendation here? For the recommendation, the objective should be known. The objective is that we should be following our budgets, and budgets should be approved by higher authorities before they're implemented. And if a department is exceeding the budget, they should be penalized for it. They should be held accountable for it. Okay. Now, moving forward to control recommendation, what should be the recommendation here? The recommendation should be that management should have a monthly assessment of the departments. Now, like in cost accounting, you have studied responsibility accounting. The word I am using is responsibility accounting. What does responsibility accounting mean? Responsibility accounting mean that a manager is held responsible for their particular departments, for the work they have done, for the expenses they have conducted, etc., etc. So use responsibility accounting system where internally you are managing your employees, you are assessing your employees, you are having their performance evaluated, and make sure that the variances are justified, the explanation for variances are justified. Any asset expenditure, any capital expenditure you have done should be first authorized by the finance director, as they will see whether the particular expenditure would result in overpressing or over expenditure from the budgets that they have planned. Okay, so make sure that the overspending is not done here. Okay, now moving forward to the next area. Now, what does the next area say? Okay. Now, when new part equipment is acquired, the finance director classifies the expenditure. So this is a good control. So if there is a good control, that we will not basically try to go for deficiency as well. Now, in the examination question, if you have written direct control and you mentioned the same point in your deficiency part as well, the examiner will be very confused, as will a normal person be. That one side you are saying it is a good control, we can place reliance on, and one place you are saying it is a deficiency. So it is not a good thing to write here. Go for some separate area. Go for some separate thing that you can identify. Okay. Now, part of the work which internal audit department is required to carry out is a comparison of assets as per non-current asset register with those physically present. So we are checking the documentations, the fixed asset register, and comparing with physical asset. Now, in this paragraph, they had told us that this is a program of visit which has been planned and carried out on the same center, and 5 of other centers are selected. Now, we have done this previous year also. We have done this on the same year. Now, this year also and last year, both the years, we have done a checking of 5 of the major sites and 4 of the lower end sites. So if we are only checking 9 out of 34 transaction, 9 of the 34 of the facilities, that means we are not basically checking the physical assets of all of the departments. Many sites are not checked for multiple years. If many sites are not checked for the physical assets for multiple years, that means basically now we are having a risk of what? Of risk of misappropriation of funds. Okay, so misappropriation of funds is a problem that is going to be a very big problem for us. Why it is going to be a big problem for us? Because it will materially impact the financial statements. So this is the deficiency that we have identified. So infrequent physical verification, I'll write it down as well. Infrequent physical verifications. That means basically some of the facilities are checked for assets, some of them are not checked. So what should be our objective of the control? Objective should be that we are checking all the existing non-current assets at all locations for obsolescence, impairment, etc., and for the presence of their assets as well. So internal audit department should revise its visit program and alternatively check all the departments on short cycles so that they can go for investigation of all the sites that are not located in their local facilities. Or they can hire third parties to go and visit and check for the valuation or the condition of the assets that are present in other facilities so that we can place reliance on them and we can see whether the particular assets are having the right value or not. Okay, so this can be a control recommendation that we can go for. Now moving forward to payroll department. Now, payroll department says the first paragraph says not one company has a department in which they're responsible for setting up all the employees. The first of all, the first paragraph is giving you all the details regarding a direct control. So we are not going to basically go for that area because it is a contradiction as I've told you. Now, second paragraph says all members of payroll department can amend employee standing data. All members of payroll department can amend the standing data. That means any employee of the payroll department can come up and as he wish, he can change the data that is basically implemented in the organization. So this can result in what? This will result in an impact on the organization where anyone who wants can come up and add up a fictitious employee or subtract an employee if he doesn't like him, right? They can do whatever they want. So access to the system for amendments should require some reasonable level of care. A concerned control system should be there where limited people are allowed to amend the particular payroll systems, right? So that only people who are authorizing it or have the authority to do so or have the particular uh, position to amend the records are done. And we know who has done the changes so that we can hold them accountable. This is a very weak system that could result in a material impact on the organization. So first of all member of payroll department can amend this system and they have access to password which can be changed by which is changed by the payroll director on a quarterly basis. So sorry. So the password is changed every 3 months, but everyone knows about it. So what is the purpose of the password here? Right? So amendment of payroll data should only be done by the finance director or the director of the payroll department, not every employee. This is a deficiency. This could result in integrity issues of the data and can result in a negative outcome on the particular financial statements or increase payroll or decrease payroll expenses as well. Okay. Now, how to prevent it? To prevent it, I need to implement the control. To implement the control, my objective of control will be that only authorized people have the access to the system for amendments. And if amendment is made, there should be a report stating that this amendment is made for this particular purpose by this particular person. So, identification of amending party or a report of changes should be created, and a particular password should be set and given to only authorized people. Okay. Now, if I'm recommending this control, I will recommending that access to amended data or amendments should be only to senior payroll staff, 1 or 2 people. And if there is a change made, it should be authorized by the department head or the finance director. And if a report is edited, the edited data, additions or subtractions that are done, they should be basically made in a report and should be reviewed by a official person so that they know what changes were made and why were they made. They can have the reasonable justification for that. Okay. Now we have identified approximately 3 to 4 points. Now moving forward. On monthly basis, the employees are paid by bank transfer. The senior payroll manager reviews a list of bank payments and agrees to the payroll record. If any discrepancies are noted, the senior payroll manager makes the adjustment in the payroll records. Now, first of all, he is the person he is the person who is reviewing the payroll, agreeing to the payments, and he's amending the changes as well. So there is a lack of segregation of duties here. The senior payroll manager is both amending the payroll records and authorizing them as well. So amending party should be different and authorization party should be different. If one person is making an amendment that is fraudulent in nature, the other party might catch him if it is in the process of being checked by another party. Now the same person is checking it. So if the same person is checking it, that means basically there is a threat that our self review will be done here, and self review if done, the fraud can be surpassed or can be moved forward without any hesitation. So our objective here will be that we are trying to prevent and detect fraudulent transactions. So we will try to go for a segregation of duties. So payroll manager should not be amending the payroll if he's authorizing them, or if he's authorizing them, he should be not assigning another person the duty to amend them. If he is amending them, some other party higher than his post should be given the authority to authorize the payments. Discrepancy should be investigated and a discrepancy report should be created that is basically signed by the parties. Okay. So independent party should review the documents and authorization should be done by separate parties. And if he's authorizing them, there should be a signature there or initial there so that the payments can be cross-verified later on. Okay. Now moving forward to our sales and bank. This is the last area, so not much time will be taken up now. Now, after passing a credit card check, the new customers are set up in their individual customer master file and credit limit is set by sales director. The credit limits then remain unchanged until the customer requests them to. Now, this is an ineffective system. Why? This is an ineffective system. Why? Because if a person, let's say, if a person is in a position where they has taken credit from us. Now, our credit limit is basically a limit on which we pay gives a person goods to pay us later on. So he's taking the goods right now and he'll pay later. If a particular person takes good from us, or let's say for 100,000, and he has not paid us yet, but we are not changing his credit rating or lowering the credit that we can give him. What will happen is he will again ask for credit and we'll give him back. So it will increase the chance of having a bad debt. So credit limit should be reviewed quarterly or monthly basis by a senior official so that we can lower the credit limit of people who have not paid us yet or increase the credit limit for the people who are paying us back on time so that we can take advantage of it by basically increasing the credit limits and taking advantage of the business that is coming in. So do not lose the chance of revenue and do not give the opportunity to increase the bad debts. So both of the scenarios are to be considered here. Okay. So credit limit should be reviewed on a regular basis. This is a control recommendation that we should give, and the control recommendation is having supporting objective of reducing the chance of irrecoverable debt and maximizing the opportunity of revenues. So credit limit should be continuously checked by the directors and reviewed and adjusted periodically or perpetually at reasonable intervals so that we can take advantage of all the particular opportunities we have. Okay. Now, each new customer is allocated a client service manager for Snowdown, who is responsible for managing the customer relationship and maximizing sales. The standard credit terms for employees are 30 days and a monthly basis sales invoice which are over 90 days outstanding are notified to relevant clients, service managers to chase payment directly with the customer. Now you see a difference here. Normally they're saying that we have a 30-day credit period. That means after 30 days you have to pay back the credit that you have taken. But we are sending the invoice to the particular manager who is taking care of the client after 90 days. So we are sending the first reminder after 90 days when we had to collect the payment in 30 days. That is an absolutely absurd type of control that we have implemented. So the chasing should be done from 20th day. As soon as the invoice becomes due, the customer should be sent a notification 1 week before the invoice becomes due that after 1 week your invoice will be due. So please maintain your finances or make sure that you're able to pay them on time. Right? So here this control should be in place. Now, this if we are sending the particular person a 90-day the checking after 90 days, what will happen is the customer will be relaxed that they are not asking for the money. Why should I pay them? Right? It could increase the chance of bad debt as well. It could increase the chance of having a cash flow issue as well because the people who have taken credit from us, right? They have taken goods from us on credit. They are not paying us, but we have to pay the suppliers that from whom we have taken the goods from. So we have to make sure that we have liquidity available so that we can pay them as well. So to improve cash flow, now our objective will be that we will try to reduce the chance of bad debts and have prompt system to control the transactions, to update the credits, and to basically notify the manager to ask for the client or tell them or notify them or update them or give them a reminder that after 10 days or 15 days your payment will be due. So control recommendation will be that a credit controller should be appointed to chase the overdue balance before even 30 days or 25 days. If 25 days have passed, send them a reminder to the customer. And after 30 days, chase them up to the maximum extent you can, so that you are basically not having a chance of bad debt. So when a person sees that the other party is continuously responding to you, continuously following you up, you sense a feeling that now you have to pay them back. They are eager to take the payments back. So you will pay them. You have prioritized your client. So this will basically be a control that I can recommend it. So with this, I see that the deficiency part is also taken care of, and I believe that no one has any questions. If you do, please do let me know so that we can go for the drafting examples and we'll move on with the session. Okay, let's move forward with the drafting part here, as we have created all the questions that were there. Now, the first one was direct control and test of controls. So in direct control and test of controls, first area that we were basically looking on was that we had a direct control where we were basically going for the position where our overall budgets were created. Other than that, we were having segregation of duties. Non-current assets were having a clear classification, right? We were having clear classification of between the capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. So let's draft that one first. Now, first of all, direct control as prescribed by the examiner. Just give them the first point. Now heading. Now heading, you should classify what are you writing about. So write it in bold, or we'll bold it in red. Asset classification text. This is the first point that was given as a good control to us, right? So what was that situation? The assets when purchased were having a classification done between revenue expenditure and capital expenditure on the purchase order. Okay. Now this was the first area. Now this is the first area that was done. After this, what was being done? The classified data was checked by the finance director. Okay. Now this is what you have written. Now, if this was done, what risk does it mitigate? That is the main point that you have to identify here. So this would result in a lower chance of error in classification of the cost and reduce the chance of over or understating profit slash asset slash depreciation of the non-current asset. Okay, so you have told them what is the control, then you have told them how is the control used, and then you're going to tell them why is it a good control, what risk do it mitigate. Now after that, you have to give a test of control. So give a test of control here. So for a test of control, what I am seeing is how should I know that I can rely on this particular control? How should I see that whether I should rely on this control or not? So test of control will be, what can be tested? The test can be, first of all, if they are saying that the purchase order has the classification written there, so check the purchase order. So select a sample of the purchase order to check the evidence of classification being present there. Okay, number one. Number two, the finance director is checking it. So the finance director is checking the transactions, the classification according to the guideline So inspect a sample of purchase order to inspect or to check the initials of the finance director to verify authorization. Okay, so this is a test of control here. Okay, now I believe that this was clear to you guys. No questions were there in this drafting. Now what you have to do is next, I'll just complete the second part B of it so that we are having the complete draftings of both the types of questions. So part C, first is control deficiency. Okay, and control deficiency number one, deficiency, what did we identify here? The first deficiency that we identified here was budgets were not being followed. So if budgets were not being followed, what can we do here? How do we write this deficiency? If we are having uh, now, what should be the heading first? As it should, the basic heading should be that asset expenditure budget not followed. Okay? Make that in bold so that the examiner knows that you have made it a heading. Now, then emphasize, tell them what is the particular draft, what issue here. The department has been assigned a budget for the asset expenditures, but the department already has exceeded the budget allotted to them. This is the problem. Now, why is it deficiency? This is a deficiency because this shows weak budgetary control. Now, anyone who has studied costing, or everyone would have, so they know that if the costing is the budget are not followed, that means our prices are that we have said earlier on in the year are inadequate, and we are not going to be able to recover the particular expenses that we have done. So it will result in a loss. So this could lead to long-term losses for the organization. Okay, now this is a deficiency. Now my recommendation here will be, my recommendation should be that first of all, if I'm recommending something, I should ensure that what should be my objective here. My objective should be that I am having a position where my overall budget should be followed, right? So if I want to make sure that my budgets are followed, what should I do? I should have a monthly review of departments and their budgetary position to understand to get to know that to get to know whether they followed the budgets or not now, and give the complete idea, the complete what we can say recommendation by performing variance analysis, and based on this performance place the increments of the department managers. Number one, okay, this is one of the things that we can do. Other than that, what can we do? We can have a approval system. When asset expenditures are required, the complete transaction should be approved by department head or the board of directors to ensure budgetary compliance is there, okay, so that we don't overspend. So this was a small drafting of the pointers that we have discussed on. Now, what I would like you guys to do is, for your sake, that I am giving you my email address. Draft this complete answer and email it to me. Okay. By emailing it, what will happen is I will check this answer and identify deficiencies that were there in your answers. It will give you a positive feedback regarding your answers, drafting positions, and a time to emphasize or ensure that you pass the exam. Other than that, in the WhatsApp group, I have given the drive link where the complete drafted answer is present as well. So you can compare your answer from that place as well. So I believe that this particular session was helpful for you guys, and you might have gained some good insights on how to solve a question and how to draft an answer. And for any other purposes, for any other queries you have, anything you want, you can discuss it on the WhatsApp group that is available. I am available at all times, and inshallah, will be able to help you out there as well. So if anyone has any questions, please do let me know.